Cool stuff.
All right, welcome everyone to DeFi Standard. It's Mickey BiFrost, and I got with me
PattyXRP.
How we doing today after a Memorial Day weekend?
Yep, doing pretty solid. Had a nice time. Got to see a lot of family, so that's always a good occasion.
Very good, very good. We're on the backup mic today, so if it sounds a little off, sorry about that. We're getting a new one. We had some issues on the last video that we did, so we're working with the backup for the time being. But we do have some interesting news that came out actually over the weekend here that I thought was interesting from the SEC. So this was a big blow to their fair notice defense, their defense against the fair notice. So Netburn, who is the judge for the discovery, basically denied the SEC the ability to subpoena all the records of Ripple's contact with their lawyers, right here, for early days talks about if XRP was a security or not. So I think this really, is going to be a blow to, the future, and it could spark actually a settlement in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what it comes down to is like, if the SEC never really advised Ripple that, XRP might be a security, and really the only advice advisement they got on that was in the early days. I'm talking like 2013, 14, from their lawyers saying, hey, this is a new thing. Like, this could be deemed a security by the SEC. And now that bit is taken out of it. I really think that deals a pretty big blow to the SEC's, side of the argument in case of the fair notice. Because, obviously they took 8 years to bring this proceeding. So that's a really long time. And, I'm glad that the judge is having some foresight, because obviously there's attorney-client privilege and things of that nature. So I'm kind of glad, just from a privacy aspect, that wasn't ruled in the other way, as well as it's good for XRP in the case.
It is good. They're going to have difficulty. The one thing with this fair notice now that really makes it interesting and puts the risk on the SEC here is if Judge Torres approves, all she has to do is approve Ripple to use the fair notice defense, it puts the SEC in a position of very high risk on. Because even if they win the case, Ripple could always technically appeal it to a higher court. And if they won in a higher court, it would literally remove the SEC from all aspects of crypto. Like, it would just take them out, as that would be case law in a higher court. So the SEC would be playing with such a high risk. Even if they did win the case or lose the case, their risk of being eliminated from crypto is really high. And I don't know if Gensler is going to play with fire like that, and that would bring somebody to the table. So I think that's where, when it comes down to, like, you know, the cards that you have and that's left, or like with blockchain backer described it pretty good if you play chess, what pieces you have left in the game. And basically the SEC is running out of pieces on the board. And at that point, you're going to have to come to the table and settle. And hopefully it would be a good settlement for Ripple in this case and the XRP community if we get clarity with that. Because the SEC wasn't budging before that. So hopefully we see some movement here in the next week or two. So I would expect that. I'm not saying we're going to have a settlement, but I think, you know, in the past I've said settlement was unlikely. I think now we're getting close to where it's possibly likely in the near future. So I've kind of changed my opinion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's kind of like, let's say that Ripple wins on the fair notice defense, then, you know, that's just going to make it harder for the SEC in the future. And we know that this is just one battle of a war, because there's so many different cryptocurrencies out there. And there definitely are some that, you know, you can look at pretty easily and be like, this kind of looks like, you know, a securities offering. It's like, do they want to limit themselves that much going forward here just for the sake of one case that, you know, maybe wasn't brought forward in the best way possible at the beginning, you know, with Clayton leaving and then many other of the heads leaving since from the SEC after they brought the case. So I think Gensler has a lot of things to think about. And I mean, on the topic of Gensler, yeah, he certainly hasn't been the best, I think, that we were kind of hoping for. Just with, you know, we kind of know that he had this knowledge of blockchain and everything. It definitely seems at this point that he's very much a regulator at heart. But I think we still got to give the guy a little more time to see what happens. And, you know, in the case with Ripple, I feel like, I know some of us may not like it this way, but it may just be hard for him as like from a political capital standpoint to come in and just drop the case right off the bat. So, you know, maybe it just needs to play out longer to see what goes on here. But, you know, what the SEC's had about one major win with the MOUs. And I don't even know if I would call that major. You know, those are things you would think they would have known about beforehand instead of kind of just fishing around this late into the game. So, you know, it seems very much it's been swayed into the Ripple and XRP holder side at this point. And then hopefully we'll have a ruling with John Deaton on his motion to intervene coming soon. I mean, between this and him getting involved, and if he starts to lay out all the facts that he's been accumulating over the past 6 months, I mean, it's just, I don't know how long the SEC will go on with this. It's just kind of shocking at this point. You know what I mean? Nothing seems to be going right for them.
Yeah, it's definitely, they're losing the battle. I mean, that's one thing we could clearly say here. And I feel like Gensler, he keeps talking about, when you hear him speak, he keeps mentioning the exchanges. We need consumer protections and those type of things. He's not necessarily has come out and said everything's a security. Yeah, he's mentioned that, but he seems to be really focused on the exchanges. And we know with the Fat F ruling and the travel rule, you know, it didn't go away. It's coming back. So you're going to probably see like DeFi, KYC and AML is coming. I mean, they can't really force it on the protocols and the software, but at those endpoints, when you enter the DeFi dApps, that's where the KYC and AMLs will come. So it's going to be on Flare Finance, and it's going to be on Trustline. When you enter, you have KYC AML. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be the best thing that actually ever happens, because it will usher in the decentralized digital identities or self-sovereign digital identities. And then you'll just have a pay string or a domain name that will be attached to your Flare wallet. And that'll be it. And it won't be your actual name on there. That'll be off-chain. So I think this will give more security to actually users too, and better consumer protection. So, you know, some of the things that Gensler brings up about consumer protections, yeah, they want to overdo it and make their own world. Oh, somebody just brought that up, Patty. What is 888 New World?
We can touch on that in a sec if you want to keep going with your Gensler thoughts.
Yeah, my Gensler. Yeah, we'll touch on that, Ryan, Molly. We just saw that before we got on. We weren't going to touch on it, but I guess we will now since you brought it up. Yeah, so Gensler, I think he means well, and he has some good points there. I just hope they don't over-regulate things, you know, to where they kill the retail investors. But, Coinbase does some shady things with their whole bot trading and their institutional investors, front running. These exchanges aren't regulated, many of them, to an extent. So I do think that, he has good intentions, but, hopefully this actually lawsuit, a loss to the SEC or at least a settlement is not a win, would keep them in check. And then, they don't go overboard with legislation hopefully coming behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the KYC AML note, there's a lot of different ways to kind of accomplish that's being worked on. So I wouldn't just look at it as some surveillance state right off the bat and just go to the other end of the curve. Like, let's see how these things play out. There's plenty of KYC providers in different DeFi protocols that are looking into selective KYC. So it's, right now, one issue is every time you get some new, online application you're using, they want all this information from you. So it's all right, well, you're giving it out to, probably for a lot of people, hundreds of different databases at this point. So this could actually be very good in that regards in the long term. If you have something like global ID and you can just selectively share specific info that's required for that application, instead of having to have all this extra stuff going on that you could, that's privy to a hack. And we've definitely seen, every level of, firm in the US and worldwide has been, privy to hacks at this point. I mean, Facebook has been hacked. You would think they would have the top security in the world. So it's all these centralized databases that companies are running out here that store our data, they're all susceptible at this point. We just saw the US or one of the main oil pipelines get hacked. So finding a decentralized way for these identities, I think it's good going forward that Flare's kind of or the dApps on Flare rather are starting to get prepared for this, because it's definitely coming. And I mean, I think it's needed. It's just how are we going to accomplish that in the long run? So,
and I think third world countries, though, speaking of, somebody just brought that up, Computer Tech Services Incorporated, it really comes down to the Bank Secrecy Act. So basically, if an institution or enterprise is allowing their customers to interact with an exchange or other people on this platform, even if it is decentralized, they really just want to know that they're not from some, state that doesn't deal with the US or deal with the UK or Europe. So, I don't know exactly what states those will be. They for example, the Civic digital identity wallet points out a few countries that are off limits that won't be included. So it's going to be interesting to see what passes the travel rule and what doesn't. Basically, whatever countries are part of the FATF, but that eliminates some, to an extent. I mean, it's going to be more your countries that, I don't really want to name them, but I think you kind of know certain countries.
I mean, yeah, a certain island that they don't have access to internet. Yeah. That's probably one over in the northern part of Korea. But it's also so the US puts out these lists that you're not allowed to particularly transact in those countries and stuff. But, if those countries get, kept out for good on some of these things, that kind of bothers me, because it's not every single person in these countries are bad actors, and it's very arbitrary towards whatever government's putting out those rules. So I hope we find some better solutions on how to identify those people, because I really hate to see just one country, because maybe they've had some links to possible bad events that have happened in the past, and now all the people in those countries can't do anything. I don't think that's a good solution either, because they don't have economic freedom already, and DeFi is supposed to be for financial inclusion. So I mean, even if we get into a point where at first that has to happen, I hope that we can keep evolving the tech to find better solutions for that, for sure.
Yeah, I think all Latin and South America were good. In
definitely.
The Civic wallet, it showed every country in Latin and South America were good. So if it was Venezuela, Colombia, they were good on the list with Civic. It was just parts of the Middle East and Africa and areas that were no good for Civic's wallet. I don't know what Flare Finance is going to allow, though. That was just Civic's wallet we were based on. And then there's Global ID. Yeah. So Global ID is going to have some kind of digital identity wallet coming out soon, too. So we have not heard exactly what is good for Flare Finance themselves or Trustline. So I think it's going to be up to the dApp. But, it's going to really be a interesting situation to see how that plays out. But,
yeah, so on top of that, So we just had we went on the Dogecoin like Twitter Spaces conversation with Flare Finance from last Friday, and we messaged them some questions before. One of them was about KYC AML. They didn't necessarily want to address it at depth for that call because they're still working with Civic on how to provide that. They said they're looking to do like the minimum amount of KYC. So it seems like, to me at least, so from what they've told us so far, is they're trying to just make that they're like fulfilling any kind of like obligations, laws, regulations that they have to protect themselves, but not like overdoing it by any means. But, overdoing it is going to be anybody's individual perspective on that. And you got to understand, like, that team is building this out, and they got to protect themselves first and foremost from getting in trouble with the law.
Yes, exactly. They're just the protocol designers and the creators. They're not, they're making products, but the products are not being sold to you as products like Coinbase would sell to you or BitTrue would sell to you. Remember, so this is DeFi and emerging with the world of CeFi. Like, that's really the world we're going into in the future here. So we have to understand there is this crazy wild west of DeFi out there on Ethereum, and you have this very regulated CeFi world, and they're going to kind of come together and just go head on and merge with each other. And that's when we're going to see the fireworks go, and good fireworks. And you'll see the liquidity pouring. But for that to happen, some parts of DeFi are going to have to be regulated a little bit, with at least knowing that these people who you're interacting with are these, counterparties, I guess you could say, even though there's nobody in the middle, they are at least known to be not from those bad countries, I guess you could say, according to the U.S. I just don't want to name names on the live stream. I don't know. I don't want to get flagged for the video. I don't know what.
I mean, there's a T word that I would say that, like, obviously that'll give you some thoughts on it, like around who US would exclude or whoever Civic's running with. But, it's not to say that, like, let's say some of those countries are ruled out for some types of DeFi protocols or dApps being built. It's not like that somebody couldn't build one in a jurisdiction that's not as strict on that stuff and allow them access. It's just like on certain points, which, I mean, like, I find it a little unfortunate, but that's kind of the world we live in. And I think a lot of us as XRP holders, I remember, like, in the early days, like, the marketing for XRP was like, it's a solution to work with the current world, but bring them into, the new digital economy. So we're kind of used to that line of thinking already. It's like, it was never going to be something that absolutely takes over all kind of like governments and centralized finance that's been happening. But, how do we work with it to form the best kind of economy going forward?
Well said. All right, here's a good question from Ryan, and I guess you have to take the 50 KT question after about Avalanche. Okay. All right, so Ryan asks, how does the FTSO on the Flare network compare to the Oracle projects such as Link and Band? And then he asks about 50K's question. So comparing it to Link, I'm not super familiar with Band, but Link, at least, the difference is, so instead of putting up value in stake, the oracles have to put up value to stake it to provide price feeds. Flare is kind of the opposite. So instead of putting up stake, they earn rewards for providing accurate price feeds. So what it's doing, it's decentralizing a network of signal providers who earn rewards for providing accurate price feeds. And now anyone who holds Spark is able to delegate this detachable vote. So I think that's really where the breakthrough is that there's this detachable vote that removes from the token that could go to the signal provider and gives them voting power to vote for the price feeds that they put through the Flare time series oracle. So that's kind of the difference. It's an incentive-based instead of a proof of stake, where you're putting up stake to claim, basically, your reputation.
Yeah, and I think on that, it's like, it's offering, it's like creating an ability for the built-in oracle on the Flare network to be more decentralized over time. I mean, if we see, just like, I think right now there's around 15 signal providers we know of. I'd imagine that's going to keep growing over time. So the more of those that we have, that's going to have, more decentralization in regards to what kind of data is being brought to it. and it's rewarding people to be good actors. So you would have to think that you would have to get a large conglomeration of these signal providers to start being bad actors to flip that, which, all of this is kind of like a lot of blockchains are like game theory. So in that respects, I think it, provides a good incentive.
Good point.
Yeah.
So let me just touch on one other thing before you answer 50K's question. So with the delegating our votes, I think this is important for us to know because this is relevant to everybody here. You're going to be able to delegate your votes to different signal providers by percentage. So you could put 25% to this signal provider, 25 to that, 50 to another. And now it will auto delegate the votes to you. So as you earn the new Spark, right, it'll auto delegate the new votes out to that signal providers that you already have set up in the percentages. So in that way, that autonomy and that automation will make it easy for us, and especially people who don't want to go on there every day and reset, what signal provider they want to go to. In the beginning, you might want to move around, but at least you don't have to do it, okay, I need 50 Spark with this one, 1,000 Spark that way. It'll do it by percentages. So it will make it a user-friendly, and I think that's important, and it will auto-delegate. So as you earn, you just earn more. It just auto-compounds for you.
Yeah. Cool. And then on the note, so 50KT, so he said, have you guys heard about Avalanche's patent on its protocol? If it does pass, it could last 7 to 20 years, and it's up to patent holders if they choose to enforce it against Flare or not. Hugo has addressed this. I can't remember if it was in the Telegram on Twitter. I was trying to look through the Twitter to find it. No luck. So I think it may have been on the Telegram. He did this was pretty recently, I think in the past week, but he's already said that none of this is going to affect them and that they're good to go. They're only using a portion of the Avalanche consensus protocol, which I believe is the Snowflake, right, Mickey?
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
Or
something like that. Snowflake or Snowball.
They're only using one component of Avalanche. I mean,
and they're good to go.
There's other components. I mean, literally this thing was thrown out there. The Avalanche is a complicated, 3-step consensus. So, you could kind of say the subnets are kind of what, those other blockchains are, but they're a little different, the F assets, It's not the same exactly there. But yeah, Snowball or Snowflake, it's one of those, are the component that Flare is really using.
Yeah. And so they're good to go. Yeah. They're not going to, it's not where they're going to have to take it out and not use it anymore. It's good to go.
It's a good
part
question.
Of the protocol.
Good question, 50KT, because I didn't know that. So that's good to know. All right. So we got BSEC here. Did I hear you guys say recently that minting F assets may be weeks or even months after the Flare launch now? That's all you, Patty.
Yeah, so Hugo said in the interview he did with Dogecoin Militia a couple weeks ago that the F asset system is going to be voted in by governance, and it could take up to 6 to 8 weeks for that occur. So it doesn't mean that it has to take 6 to 8 weeks, but it could take up to that time frame. We don't know much more about that. Basically, they want the signal providers to have time to, get enough practice and get the accuracy of their data signals to the FTSO to be as good as possible. And they also want the volatility of Spark to die down, because those are two of the biggest factors in minting F assets is, maintaining the collateral ratio with Spark tokens, and then also making sure you can maintain that 1-to-1 price peg with the underlying asset as closely as possible. So it's kind of like the network's going to start running. Those two things are going to be happening with Spark being traded freely on the open market, and then the FTSO providers are now practicing or doing it live, their data aggregation to send through the FTSO. So it's just kind of like a ramping up of the whole system before kind of like the big tamale gets brought in with the F asset system.
Yeah, you have to think of the F asset system as an app itself. So it's just a very big app, and it's built into kind of the protocol with these signal providers. So that's why it's not going to be launched when the network goes live. It's going to be a few weeks after that because, like he said, the signal providers have to get up and running. So Neil asks here, is there a benefit to creating an F asset other than earning passive Spark tokens?
Absolutely.
You can go.
Cool. Yeah. So when you mint an F asset, what's going to happen? So you pay whatever the creation fee, which should be probably somewhere less than 5%. It's going to be based on a bidding system. So you'll get a lower creation fee when there's less demand for F assets to be minted versus a time where there's higher demand. And then from there, you'll get into the Flare network. Let's use XRP as the minted asset in this scenario. You'll now have FXRP. And every day you'll have basically an airdrop of Spark delivered to you from the general F asset rewards pool. That's based on the total value of the F assets you hold in FXRP versus the total amount of F assets minted between FXRP, FDoge, and FXLM. And that's dollar value, not like individual token value. So from there, you'll be getting daily airdrops in that. You can now go and use your FXRP in the Probity Vault from Trustline to provide collateral for ARI, the stablecoin, to be minted and lended out to people. So you can earn yield that way and also still get those daily rewards from the like general rewards pool. Or you can go into Flare Finance and they have a number of products you can use. So you could use their collateralized loan product. You could provide liquidity in a two-sided liquidity pool to swap between FXRP and a stablecoin and earn fees that way. Then you also would get liquidity pool tokens that you can use to unlock YFIN that's been accrued from Flare Farm for doing that. What else could you do? You could be a part of like the Flare Mutual program, which provides insurance for any kind of DeFi hacks that happen in the Flare Finance ecosystem. So there's like a good number of things you can do. And over time, as more stuff, like more dApps are created on top of the network, there'll be more to do with it. So that's just a couple starting points to earn yield. The nice thing is you could possibly earn, I guess you could really earn up to four streams of yield. And when I say this, this is what it would be. So you get your daily rewards for just holding FXRP. Then you could also, since every F asset comes with a detachable vote to the FTSO, just like Spark does, you could possibly get paid by signal providers in some kind of way. Maybe it's a reduction of fees. Maybe they give you just a small amount of extra Spark, you know, whatever, every day. Who knows how they do it?
NFT, who knows?
Yeah, an NFT, they could do something like that so they can get creative. And then you could take it over to Flare Finance, put it in one of those two-sided liquidity pools along with an equal amount of stable coin in the other side, and you would earn fees from swapping there. And then also you get your liquidity pool tokens that you can earn YFIN from Flare Farm. So that could be four things at once that could happen. Now, I don't know how long all of that will last because like Flare Farm YFIN will eventually start dying out. The F asset rewards pools will start going down over time, which will take a really long time for it to get low, but that's just like going to happen. But in the start, that's like a good thing to do, or not a good thing to do rather, but something you can.
Yeah, it's if you want to maximize, I mean, there's ways that you could maximize. So remember, each F asset is also going to come with an FTSO vote, you know, which these signal providers are going to want. You're not going to earn any Spark necessarily for it, but it will bring value to the signal provider, so they could structure their, you know, offerings with that in there. So it's something to keep in mind. You having FXRP on the network will give you an added benefit. So we have another question up here. So with the ledgers, all right. So that's a whole nother topic. Will Flare Network have a fiat to Spark option for agents to quickly feed their collateral from going under?
Well, they could just hold stable coins and trade into Spark pretty easily. I imagine also that they're going to have extra reserves of Spark on hand. They'll have all kind of like machine learning algorithms that are keeping an eye on the market and, you know, kind of seeing, okay, is volatility incoming, like what's happening? So they very much have to take a very broad look at everything that's going on so that they can plan in the near, you know, medium and long-term future for what kind of capital requirements they're going to have. So, I mean, that's going to be stuff like whatever central banks are putting out that could change the broader economy is going to affect that. You know, like where are interest rates for bonds? What is the, you know, what are fiat values doing at the time? So a lot of that stuff is going to be important for them to take into account. And yeah, they're always going to need to be able to source more Spark for any kind of worst case scenarios. And that's why we've kind of always said it'll be very hard for like individuals to do. Now it's like more of a task for many, you know, multiple people on a team with a lot of excess capital that they can do.
Exactly. And now early on, one thing they did say in that AMA that we had with the Flare Finance team, that day one, even though Flare Finance won't have their tokens, Y Flare or Y Fin, there will be a liquidity pool from Flare X between Spark and YUSD. So that's interesting in the fact that there is going to be liquidity pushed onto the network early on, that first day. So what that opens up really is a huge arbitrage opportunity from the exchanges to the Flare network. Because now you have Spark trading against the stablecoin here in a liquidity pool, which is going to be bouncing all over the place. And you're going to have these exchanges with the prices. So that's where the arbitrage will allow the price to settle at a point, but also provide opportunity for those who want to take advantage of that arbitrage. So I think that's necessary because there is arbitrage is nice between exchanges, but when you add in the DeFi arbitrage, it's a whole new aspect there then. Because that's just pretty much, it allows everyone to provide liquidity. So you could provide Spark and the stablecoin into the liquidity pool, and there'll probably be some type of incentives in the early days when that goes live, they said. So we got to wait and see exactly what the specifics are there on that. But cool. Something to prepare for.
Okay. Cool. Do you want to address some of the stuff about the wallet, since I know we got some questions here?
Let's take Michael Riley's question right here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we should do the wallets next. Great intelligence. Thanks. Once, yeah, that was cool. Once we stake Spark for collateral, would we choose which percentage of the available assets we earn from the creation fees, or is it dependent upon what F assets are minted entirely? I'll leave that to you.
Okay, so I need to read it one more time to get it. Once we stake Spark for collateral, do we choose which percentage? Okay, so that I do not know an answer to that question. I've kind of been thinking about how that would work. I imagine that'll be like very similar with the FTSO delegation. There may be some randomness brought into it. So the rewards are given out based on like a randomly selected like underlying asset creation fee. Also, they could just spread it out between everybody who has collateral posted in the system. So it's like, let's say $1 million worth of F assets is minted during a day, and then the creation fee on average was 5%. So they would be having $50,000, and it would just be spread out to everybody that basically provided collateral based on how much collateral you're providing. That's kind of how I'm thinking it would work. And that's very similar to like the FTSO delegation or the airdrops coming from the general F asset pools. One thing that could affect that, so I don't know how much like autonomy the agents are going to have in selecting which kind of F assets they want to back with their collateral. Now, if they have options, then maybe there'll be agents that only use their Spark collateral to back up the minting of FXRP and FDoge, but they don't do it for XLM and Litecoin. So depending on if you staked through that agent, then maybe you would only get those underlying assets. Unfortunately, I can't like give you an exact answer right now, but those are just a couple of the ways I've been thinking about how it would work at this point. So hopefully that gives you a little perspective there, Michael. And thanks for the super chat.
Yes, thank you. That's a tough question to answer with the information that we have at the moment, but we will be able to answer that soon, hopefully. All right, so let's move on to the whole issue with the wallets that's going to go on here. So how do you want to start this?
Cool. Well, I actually, yeah, well, I want to start with just one statement. So okay. I messaged Towo on Twitter earlier today, and they got back to me a little bit ago, and they said BiFrost will be available for Flare mainnet launch. So we know based on what they're saying here, it's going to be available day one. So that's an option for you to use out the get-go. Two of the ways, let's say you have a hardware wallet and you want to utilize BiFrost, but you claim through, let's say, for example, a Ledger Nano. So like for me, I have a lot of my holdings on a Ledger Nano S, and that's what I used to claim. My options then would be to import my entire Nano Ledger wallet to BiFrost, and that would be my new access point to those funds on, you know, the XRP ledger with my XRP there, and then Spark when it gets airdropped using that Ethereum message key. The other option basically is that you could change your message key, so that's that Ethereum pointer, to an empty MetaMask wallet, and then import that into BiFrost so that you can access your Spark through BiFrost that way. It just wouldn't migrate all your assets on your Nano Ledger, the access point, to the BiFrost wallet. So like if you hold a bunch of different assets on your Nano Ledger, like maybe you hold Bitcoin and other stuff there, you may not want to move those over to BiFrost. So that's like the way you would do that is change the message key, which would require you using like MetaMask or something like that, and then importing that into BiFrost rather than the entire Ledger Nano wallet.
Yeah,
did that make sense to you, Mickey?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know it's going to take a little while to get used to this. There's a lot of questions, but we only have to June 11th to do that change for the message key. Everything else you could do afterwards. But a lot of people are going to ask, can I use my Ledger Nano with the Flare network? So the question here is going to be, you know, do you want to? Even if there is an app built by Toa Labs to allow you to use your Nano Ledger with Flare network, you have to plug that thing into your computer every time you want to do something. So that's just something, you know, anyone who's thinking about decisions on how you want to use the Flare network. I'm not going to say it's best to use. Right now, there's no option to use the Ledger Nano with the network. So if Toa Labs has an app under consideration by Ledger at the moment, so if that is approved, then that means it will allow you to receive your Spark in the Ledger. But even with the app, it's then got to connect to the dApps, which it's probably not going to be connected to. And to do anything with the signal providers, you're going to have to put in your Nano S to the computer now to do any transactions or anything. But if you have the Nano X, you'll be able to do that through Bluetooth, which will be a little easier. But, you know, to be all honest with you, it's probably not the best way to go about using Flare in the future. As of right now, with the way it's set up, convenience-wise. So that's just something to take into consideration. Doesn't mean it's not an option, but it's something, you know, you want to think about usability-wise. It's probably not the best way, where BiFrost is designed for that.
Yeah, and to add on to that, so, you know, like as an XRP holder over time, it was marketed to me like, hey, I'm just going to hold my XRP in a wallet. So why not get a hardware wallet like Nano Ledger that I can only access the funds when I plug the physical device into my computer. And that's when I'm able to move them around. So it adds that like extra layer of safety. However, if you're going to be participating in the Flare network and most of your assets are going to be in the smart contracts on the network in various DeFi protocols, it's like how good is that for you if you need to now carry your Nano Ledger device around with you every time, along with a computer that you can plug it into if you have the S. It's a little easier if you have an X where you can use Bluetooth, but you know, you're carrying that around with you everywhere. It's like, okay, well, I'm in a scenario where I have this collateralized debt position and I feel like I need to watch it for the day just because, you know, something in the market's making me worried. Well, now you have to carry that device everywhere you go, as opposed to just having, you know, the mobile app for BiFrost on your phone. You see, okay, I probably just want to add a little more collateral to this position, so I feel good about it. And I just do that with me because most of us have our phones on us a lot of the time anyways. So it's a lot easier, I feel like, to manage the phone. We're all kind of used to holding a phone and keeping track of that. Now, if you have this, you know, Nano Ledger wallet that you have to carry around with you everywhere, it's much smaller. To me, it seems like it'd be a lot easier to lose. And then also it's just like, if you forget to bring it somewhere, then, you know, you have to worry about that if something happens, like a big market shock. So those are like things to keep. You know, this is why I'm kind of excited for the BiFrost wallet. They're going to add all the functionality that you need on layer 1 of Flare, like delegating Spark votes, minting F assets. Then also they're going to allow you to plug into the Flare Finance dApps and connect your wallet. Kind of if you were in the beta, you saw how you would connect your MetaMask wallet to the Flare Finance platform and then use it like that. It'd be kind of similar with the BiFrost wallet. So to me, it seems like a much or at least that's what I'm looking to do in the long run. I mean, not financial advice. It's your own holdings, and, whatever layer security feels good to you. But sometimes I'll take like that ease of access and efficiency that's going to be provided through a hot wallet. Also, I just want to add on, since I saw Moneybags touch on it, he asked like if I was claiming through Uphold, or that's where my XRP was for the snapshot, would I just send it to BiFrost? Like, exactly. So I have some on Coinbase and Bitstamp. Eventually they'll reach out and tell you how to receive that Spark, whether it's them hosting an actual Spark address through their exchange that you now have access to, or if they tell you you need to direct it somewhere, you could just create a BiFrost wallet and have it directed there. Or if you receive it on the exchange, you just get it once a month, send it over to your BiFrost wallet, the Spark address there, and then you use it there. So those are some of the things behind that. Yeah.
Well said. I think that covers everything. Just something Love said here. What was this? Is the BiFrost a hot wallet? So here's one thing that's going to be interesting with the BiFrost, how they do it. It's going to be kind of like similar to MetaMask, where you have the, you'll have the web extension, and then you'll have the regular wallet. If they add domain names into them, that will add more security for like a two-factor authentication. I don't know if they're necessarily doing that, but I feel like they could, and that would add an extra layer. But as of right now, it's really just a hot wallet, but it's a Web3 hot wallet. There really are no Web3 cold wallets I'm aware of. Ledger Live would have to do that whole integration for anything to connect. I know Decent is a hardware wallet that is supporting the Flare network. Ledger just is not supportive. So it's not the Flare network team. It's not anything to do with even Toho. They're the ones who are trying to build the app. It's just Ledger just does not integrate Ledger Live with many things. They've also had problems with their Ledger Live in the past. So, but they might in the future. They do support certain dApps that they do integrate with Ledger Live. So like Polkadot, for example, you could stake DOT right from your Ledger Live, from your Nano Ledgers with Polkadot. So they do offer these things. It's just not yet, or it looks like at launch that you're going to have that full capability. Now, with dApps, Nano Ledger, that's really like a specific thing they have to integrate with Ledger Live. So I wouldn't expect using your Nano Ledgers with like Flare Finance out the gate. I just don't think that's going to be an option unless they integrate right there. It's very doubtful.
Well, do you have anything else on the wallets, or we can briefly touch on the 888 crypto news for that
let's
video
touch on that, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I can start with that. So if you guys had noticed, there's a user on Twitter, and that's kind of big in the NFT world so far, named 888 Crypto, anonymous user. I have not figured out who it is. But basically, he is now working on a project on Flare that's like a crypto marketplace for NFTs and people who make art or music or whatever it may be. It's actually a really cool video. I want to see. I think the address is, let me find it real quick so I can share it in there. Yeah, 888tnw.com is the website, and they have a video that kind of promos it. It kind of like plays into the whole like metaverse vibe that's going on, but they already have partners with, some well-known artists in the space.
What's the link?
I saw, 888tnw.com.
888, what is it?
tnw.com.
And that stands for the New World Order, just,
Yeah, the New World.
Cool. Oh, the New World. The New World.
Yeah,
that's right.
New World Order will scare some people.
Yeah, I thought that's what
that's a long time conspiracy theory.
Hey, maybe, I don't know. It was when I watched the video, I saw New World Order. I don't know why. Yeah. Maybe just because.
Yeah, just like hearing that for so long.
Yep.
But yeah, so like they had, you guys will probably have heard of Paris Hilton at this point. I feel like anybody in the US has. She'll be working with it. There's a EDM artist called 3Lau, 3LAU, that I've heard of before, and a few other names that I noticed like in the art world that are already teaming up with the project. Basically, they're going to charge really low fees for people to host their work on their platform, and they're going to have like basically community rating systems, so certain people can get bumped up if maybe it's a smaller someone with a smaller following, but they make a really great piece of work with an NFT, then everybody could go upvote them and they get put into like the main showcase area. They're going to have like drop days. So if you ever kind of have followed like sneakers and stuff like that, like a drop day is a big deal for when they drop like new sneakers and things like that. So it's very much like an artsy kind of marketplace that's going to be working on Flare. So that's really exciting. And since they have some really well-known people out there, you would think that there'll be a large audience that are going to hear about it in some way or another here in the future. So I'm curious to see more. The video is really cool. It's like 4 minutes, but I highly suggest y'all check it out. The graphics just are cool if you kind of like space and flying around. But they also kind of, one of the things they put on there, it's like, what was it? The energy consumption of the Flare network is less than 1% of Ethereum. It'll do thousands of transactions per second, low cost with gas fees and stuff like that. So, just kind of showcasing the Flare network. I think it's pretty exciting, and just kind of, it's a different layer of this like cryptocurrency, decentralized finance world that we're going into, where like other industries are being brought in, and it's not just like finance stuff where you're, looking to swap, make trades or earn yield on assets. Like there's marketplaces that are coming here that people will be able to use. So I think it's just like an interesting thing to definitely keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, DeFi kind of is the thing that got it going, but from there outwards, we're going to see different coming in. And this is that marketplace and galleries, and how that develops, we got to see. But gaming is at the forefront. So if you buy Flare, what can you mint? Just Spark? You could delegate your vote off of the Spark to earn the FTSO rewards, which means earning more Spark. And then you could utilize the Spark at the same time while you're delegating.
So Spark is the native asset of Flare. Flare is not like, we may say Flare sometimes because obviously all these terms get confusing, but Spark is the native asset of the Flare network. Flare network is a decentralized protocol that Spark runs on. So you can't mint any Spark. That's minted through the FTSO inflation mechanism, which is delivered as rewards for people providing good or accurate price estimates to the FTSO. You can mint F assets though, which is when the Flare network integrates with another blockchain like the XRP ledger, the Litecoin blockchain, or something of that nature. And Spark is the collateral that's used to back that up essentially, so it can be minted onto the network.
Good answer. All right. I think we're going to wrap it on that. We're going to try and do these every day or every other day. So we'll probably be back tomorrow around the same time. We're going to mix in some evening ones, but this afternoon ones, it's nice to see people from Norway, Finland, and Europe.
Australia.
Yeah. So it's nice to see. And we got almost 500 people in here. So thank you.
This was one of the biggest ones. Yeah.
Thank you. So we want to do these more and more with the live streams and interact with you guys and gals, and especially from all over the world. I know sometimes at 8 p.m. at night, on the East Coast here, we don't get the whole rest of the world. So we'll be doing more during the afternoon, especially leading up to launch. So we're going to try and keep them around 45 minutes. All right? So on that note, we're just going to do We're Out today.
Yeah, we're out.
Have a good day, everyone.
Peace, guys.